What's up, Knucklehead? I'm Lupine Fiasco, and I host a daily program called Daily Fab Gameplay, where most of the time I will review my own Talishar gameplay, give my thoughts on how I could have played better, in the hopes of improving in the future. What I want to do today is talk about the release of Armory deck Kayo. Today is Friday, May 3rd, which means that AD Kayo has just hit the shelves of your local game store. This is a $40 intro product that is intended to on-ramp you or any new player into the classic constructed format of Flesh and Blood. This is the most popular format. This is the premier competitive format. And while I think AD Kayo is a fine way to get you integrated into the format, it could be better. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the deck itself, give my thoughts on where LSS succeeded and failed with their intro product, and then give you my path to upgrading the base deck into something very competitively viable. Let's begin. Over on Fabry, you can find my upgrade path for AD Kayo, and a link to this list is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you like this content, or if you have enjoyed or want to enjoy my daily Fab gameplay, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. It is the best free way to support me and make sure that you are seeing my content in your video feed 5 days a week. If you'd like to contribute a little more, there is a link to my Patreon in the video description as well. Daily Fab Gameplay patrons will get access to the DFG Discord and the shiny cardboard Talishar card back. At higher tiers, your name will appear in every DFG video. You'll get bonus DFG content every week, and there are even more benefits coming down the pipeline. Talking about putting your money into the Kayo deck, I do think that this is worth $40. I think there are some real hits in this deck, and I think there are some easily mitigable misses. Starting with the deck construction itself, $40 will get you the Kayo Armed and Dangerous Adult Hero card, 4 pieces of equipment as well as Mandible Claw as your weapon, and it will get you 60 cards with no sideboard. Those 60 cards range from playable to unplayable. New cards in this deck are Savage Sash, which I think every competitive Kayo deck will play. Hide Tanner, which is a fine substitute for Apex Bonebreaker when you are on a budget, but ultimately you will want to upgrade this to its legendary counterpart. Strength Rules All is a new card. This is a budget replacement for Command and Conquer that I think newer players will be using for some time, but ultimately will not make the cut outside of potential sideboard tech for certain classes. And we have Run Roughshod, which is an absolute slam dunk blue pitch card that will go in every Kayo deck, if not every Brute deck. Outside of those, Battlefront Bastion, I should also touch on, is a new card, but will not be exclusive to the Kayo deck. We already have confirmation that this will be printed in the upcoming Part the Mistveil expansion set. Looking at the ratios of this deck, we see that the 60 cards in the main deck include 27 reds, 3 yellows, and a depressingly high 30 blues. And I think this is a real miss from LSS. 27 reds is the more or less standard number of reds in a Kayo deck. The usual ratio I see of yellows to blues is somewhere around 10 to 12 yellows and 21 to 24 blues based on the opinion of whoever built the deck. Some decks include 24 blues, some decks think you run 21 with a reckless swing in the sideboard, but 30 blues is way too many, so that is already something that I think needs to change. Looking at the cards in the deck itself, we have a good mix of cards that are competitively viable in every KO deck. That includes cards like Bare Fangs, Clash of Agility, Pulping, and Wild Ride. We have competitively viable all-stars like Blue Agile Windup, Assault and Battery, Mighty Windup, and Wrecker Romp. But we also have some real junk in here. Rally the Rearguard is not a card that I have ever seen in a competitive KO deck and would be very surprised to see in a KO deck. We have some absolute budget alternatives. Wreak Havoc is another budget Command and Conquer, but not something I would expect to see in a KO deck. Humble is a card that I have played with a lot. I think this does have some legs, but there is a notable miss on this card as well as on Rally the Rearguard and Wreak Havoc, and that is that these are not brute attacks. There's a big reason why KO is incentivized to run brute attacks, and this is the biggest miss I see with AD KO. This deck does not include Bloodrush Bellow. If you are new to the game, I will get into Bloodrush Bellow in just a minute, but know that it is the brute staple. Bloodrush belongs in every brute deck and is in fact one of the reasons to play brute. A lot of your strategy and planning as a KO player goes into setting up the biggest and best Bloodrush Bellow turn you can have, and the fact that it is not included in this deck is a huge problem, in my opinion. I could argue that LSS is avoiding putting big money reprints into the set because they want these decks to go into the hands of new players rather than speculators or enfranchised players. That might be why we don't see Enlightened Strike or Command and Conquer, Fiendal Spring Tunic, Swing Big reprints in this box, and that's fine. We do see a Majestic reprint in Savage Beatdown. Savage Beatdown is a very playable card. It does have a spot in almost every KO sideboard, but if LSS was willing to put Savage Beatdown in as a Majestic reprint, I don't know why they wouldn't include Bloodrush Bellow. And I could argue that they want the entire deck to be filled with attacks, so that we never have a miss on our Bare Fangs, Pulping, or Wild Ride draw discard effect. But I think that if we are on-ramping players into the Classic Constructed format, and if we are billing this as a competitively viable deck, even at the Armory level, any brute that I have played against at an Armory has at least had a playset of the best card in the deck, Bloodrush Bellow. I do think that as a new player or even an enfranchised player, this deck is worth the cost. Savage Sash and Run Roughshod will go in every KO deck and will be standout all-star performers in that deck. I will be buying an Armory deck KO because I want Run Roughshod and Savage Sash. But I do think that if LSS is looking to iterate and looking to enhance the Armory experience, even for new players going forward, omitting the cheap but very powerful Majestics for that deck is a huge mess. So in that vein, let's hop over to the versions tab and I'll show you what I've made for you here. This is a list of upgrades with their associated cost from how you can take the base Armory deck KO and turn it into what is a very viable competitive deck. You can either navigate through the versions tab or through the versions drop-down at the top of your screen here. This has the associated costs, and I will touch briefly now on what I think, even among those tiers, is the most important purchases. So starting with the upgrade to Armory deck KO, we have $10 for some bulk. And I call this bulk because this is a collection of commons and rares. None of these cards will run you more than, I would say, 10 cents if you're buying in store. If you're shopping from TCG Player or another online marketplace, well, now you have to give some consideration to shipping and handling and taxes. Ideally, if you have a solid scene of local players at your game store, they can give you these cards for free. And if they are looking to grow their communities, they should be happy to do so, because a lot of these are just chaff that players pull out of their packs and either throw into a box or throw into the trash. None of these cards are worth anything, but as a new player, many of them are very competitively viable. Many of them will stay in your Kayo deck forever, and all of them will help you right out of the gate. Moving up from $10, we come into $15 for a playset of Bloodrush Bellow. And I've separated this from the next tier of low-end Brute Majestics because of how important Bloodrush Bellow is to your deck. This is the best card in Kayo's deck. This is what Kayo is looking to do, and this is what Kayo will plan his turns around, setting up a strong Bloodrush Bellow. Based on the card effect, you can see that it is buffing brute attacks. This is why I think Wreak Havoc, Humble, Battlefield Bastion are all misses in the deck, but why they are okay to include at that base level because there is no Bloodrush Bellow. But if you are looking to upgrade your Armory deck Kayo into something viable at the Armory level, you will want to prioritize getting Bloodrush Bellow. This is the best card in your deck, it is the most important card in your deck, and if you want to learn Kayo and learn Flesh and Blood, you need to start practicing with Bloodrush Bellow right away. So once we get Bloodrush Bellow, we move into the $75 tier of low-end Brute Majestics. This includes your Cast Bones, your Runner, and your Send Packing. All very important cards that all cost less than $10 on TCG Player. So for $100 between $75, $15, and $10, you can turn your Armory deck Kayo into something that honestly looks very close to a competitive deck outside of your equipment and outside of some generic Majestics. Getting your Cast Bones, your Runner, and your Send Packing is going to give you power in your deck. It's going to let you appropriately shift cards from your main deck into your sideboard so that you actually can learn how to sideboard against certain heroes, so that you aren't always running certain cards in matchups where they don't belong. Once you get your low-end Brute Majestics, we want to move up to your Brute equipment. This is when we are replacing your common, rare, and majestic Brute equipment with their majestic and legendary counterparts. So for example, we are cutting our beaten trackers and upgrading to Scabskin leathers, which block for 2 more, have a repeatable effect, and oftentimes get you a better benefit than your beaten trackers would. We're replacing your Hide Tanner with an Apex Bonebreaker that blocks for 2 more over the course of a game. We're replacing your Knucklehead with a Scowling Flesh Bag. The Flesh Bag does block less overall, but has a defensive Intimidate effect that makes it one of the best defensive pieces of equipment in the game. And we are replacing your Null Rune Hood that has Arcane Barrier 1 with Skullhorn that has Arcane Barrier 2. This is where I want to take a minute and talk about the priority of these upgrades, because if you are playing Flesh and Blood maybe as not your primary hobby, or heaven forbid you have a family or a mortgage to pay for, throwing down $150 all at once might not be possible for you. So you may be putting these upgrades together piecemeal. And between these 4 pieces of equipment, let's talk about which ones are the most important. The first being your Scowling Flesh Bag. If you can only put $50 together at a time to buy one of these pieces of equipment, the first one you're going to want is Scowling Flesh Bag. Scowling Flesh Bag is an incredible piece of equipment. It is one of, if not the best defensive piece of equipment in Flesh and Blood. It is really going to teach you threat assessment. It is going to teach you within the Kayo deck itself how to get the best value from your Flesh Bag. You want to start practicing with this right away. So if you can only afford one of these cards at a time, start with your Scowling Flesh bag. Next up, I would say move to Scabskin Leathers. You get extra block value compared to your beaten trackers, but you also get a repeatable dice rolling effect that you won't use very often, but with Prism being such a popular hero in the meta, you'll want the ability to roll Scabskins really as soon as possible. It will also teach you threat assessment, how to convert weak hands into strong turns. It gives you a get out of jail free button that you don't have with beaten trackers. Finally, we would buy Apex Bonebreaker. This is a great piece of equipment. I use it in every matchup at the moment. But I think of the 3 legendaries I've listed here, this is comparatively the weakest and is the closest to the budget option in the base AD KO deck. We do have Skullhorn. This is a $5 piece of equipment currently on TCG Player. It is the least helpful across every matchup. I only bring it in for one matchup in particular. Your Null Rune Hood is going to be pretty usable compared to this, and you can buy this when you have a few extra bucks to spend. Moving up into the high-end Brute Majestics, we see you paying for your Swing Bigs and your Beast Withins. These are 2 great cards. They belong in every competitive KO deck, but they are the most similar to what is already in your deck. Swing Big is a 2 for 8 compared to the 2 for 6s you already have. Beast Within is a 3 for 6. You very often don't want to play this. You want to discard it to Bloodrush Bellow, to Savage Feast, to Wild Ride or Pulping. But whether you discard this is purely based on chance. It is an important card to have in a KO deck. You will want Beast Within, but compared to the cards I've listed here, and even compared to Swing Big, Beast Within is okay. It is a good card, but you won't always get value out of it compared to your equipment or your Cast Bones, Runner, Send Packing, or especially your Bloodrush Bellow. Moving up from the high-end Brute Majestics, we have the rest of the deck, and this is where you're going to be spending a lot of money. Fiendal Spring Tunic, Command and Conquer, and Enlightened Strike are all very expensive cards, but that is because they are also usable in every other deck. They are all generic cards. So if you buy a Spring Tunic, you are done buying Spring Tunics regardless of where you go after KO. If you decide to play Phi, you'll play Spring Tunic. If you decide to play Azalea, you'll play Spring Tunic. If you decide to play Victor, you'll play Spring Tunic. That's why the card is so expensive. At the same time, Savage Sash is an incredible piece of equipment that is easily usable in every matchup. You'll lose a few percentage points against certain heroes compared to Spring Tunic, but not so many that you should run out and spend $80 on your Tunic. Gambler's Gloves is a $10 piece of equipment that we use against exactly one hero, and even then, it isn't always necessary. Command and Conquer is one of the best cards in Flesh and Blood. It's one of the best cards in KO's deck. It is one of the pieces of disruption that Brute has access to, and one of the top 8 Pro Tour players did not have Command and Conquer in their deck. Now, that is because they didn't own the card, and I believe if they did own Command and Conquer, they would have played it. But this is an $85 card at the time when I'm recording this video, and you need 3 of them. That's a lot of money. Again, you'll use Command and Conquer in more than just KO, but if you are talking about the necessity to play KO, Command and Conquer is at the bottom of that list. Same thing with Enlightened Strike. Some top KO players don't even play E-Strike. Sometimes not in every matchup, sometimes not at all. I like the card quite a bit. I think it belongs in KO, but for a $30 card that you need 3 of, it is at the bottom of your list, hanging out with Command and Conquer and Spring Tunic. Finally, We have a 10-cent common. I do believe this is an upgrade to Savage Beatdown at the same time. Majestics are cool, and until you are integrated and enfranchised in Flesh and Blood enough that you are happy to cut the Majestics out of your cool new intro product, Savage Beatdown is a great card, and Smash Instinct is a marginal upgrade. So that is how we go from the base deck Armory Kayo up to the incredibly expensive, decked out Kayo, not even Armory deck. This deck can compete in Pro Quests, Road to Nationals, Callings, Pro Tours, but it's certainly not something you need to rush to. As far as how to play this deck, as far as examples of Kayo gameplay and actually taking the money that you are spending and investing in your Kayo deck and converting it to wins, check out Daily Fab Gameplay on YouTube 5 days a week, because I play Kayo 5 days a week, and I'll talk through my decisions, I'll talk through my play lines, I'll talk through my thought processes, and we can all learn and improve together. But I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoy your Armory deck Kayo, and I hope that you are able to put your upgrades together, that you get your use out of them, that you get a noticeable improvement in your play experience, and that if you have any questions or any comments, that you leave them in the comment section below. I love feedback, I love to engage with all of you, and I am here to help you improve. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to assault and batter that like button. And if you have not already done so, again, I would ask you to consider subscribing to my channel. It's free, it helps me out, but no matter what you do, tune in 5 days a week for Daily Fab Gameplay, where I will be teaching you the finer points of Kayo, the finer points of Flesh and Blood, and we can all work together to take down paper events and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Until next time, take care.